Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the Jackson Sun sports team here on jacksonsun.com.
Hi everybody, thanks for checking out jacksonsun.com for this week's edition of Chalk Talk, where we break down some football action here in West Tennessee. My name is Craig Thomas. This is sports editor Brandon Shields. Lots of good high school games to keep our eyes on this week. This is week 0. We're done with Jamborees. It's time for the real thing now, Brandon. I know that's a lot of excitement for not just us, but for all the players and coaches and everybody else that likes high school football in the area. Got a handful of pretty good games to go over, and so I guess we'll just get right into it. Jackson Central Mary will be at Dyersburg. What do you like about that game?
Well, Jackson Central Mary last week at the Jamboree at Southside, they didn't have a great showing. Fumbled a couple of times early on. They're still reeling from losing starting quarterback Terrence Kinney, who was our sophomore of the year last year in the All-West Tennessee list last year, and they're still trying to regroup from having to replace him. If they can get their replacement there, they've got enough talent and physical ability that they can hang with the Trojans, give them a good game, and possibly come out of there with a win. And I know that Coach Taylor would enjoy that since he's a Dyersburg alum.
Absolutely. Liberty is a team that had a real good playoff push last year after a difficult start to the season. They got a tough test week 0 at Henry County. What do you think? Last
year I was at the game when Liberty had the better, seemed to have the better team in the first half, and we're up, I think, 24-14 at late in the third quarter, and then Henry County kind of took over and ended up winning 34-24. I know the players that are back from that team last year want to go up to Paris and return the favor essentially to Henry County. They played 5 or 6 years for the last few years. I think Liberty's only got one win over Henry County, so they're wanting to kind of get that rivalry tipped in their direction.
USJ had a tough loss early in the playoffs in 2012, but they went 10-0 before that. They'll try to keep that regular season streak going this week at Southside.
Both of these teams have different looks from last year. Southside's got the new coach in Jason Driggers. He's changing the offense from the wing tee to the flex bone. That's definitely going to be a different look. Mickey Marley at USJ, he hasn't changed anything X's and O's wise, but they lost a lot of key players off that team last year. So with new faces, it's going to be, now that we're getting into how the teams or the games that count, it's going to be interesting to see how those players react now, which both teams didn't look bad Friday night at Southside, so it should be an interesting game to watch.
Another team that had a strong, actually unbeaten regular season and has probably lost a little bit of talent as well as Northside. They'll be hosting Dyer County this week.
Both of these teams were also at Southside the other night. Dyer County didn't really show much in their scrimmage against Liberty. Northside, they didn't have a great game, particularly on defense against TCA, and Coach Val just said that they got a lot to work on this week before they get to Dyer County, but hopefully they'll have a better showing playing in their home city.
Trinity Christian has an offense that we've talked a good bit about. Seem to have some pretty good playmakers there. Still some questions, obviously. Is this week they'll be hosting St. George's? Is this a good time for them to show kind of what they can do?
Yeah, St. George's is 2 years removed from the state championship in Division II in 2011, and then you got Kyle Lakin coming back at quarterback for TCA, and he's got all of his receivers back: Chase Diggs, Grant Revere, James Bond, and a few more guys, and then some of the line. The line looked better than kind of what I was expecting them to look against Northside last week. So going up against a quality opponent like St. George's, that could be a good indication of how the season's going to go for them this year.
One week 0 matchup is Lexington at Milan, two teams that have been good recently, have been good historically. They're really popular in their towns. I mean, something that they're two schools that the towns really kind of get behind.
Right.
What are you kind of looking for from this matchup?
I'll tell you what, probably Johnny Hale Stadium is going to be packed because particularly from the fans that maybe don't follow one school, just want to go to the big game. This is just an interesting matchup because, you think of people like John Tucker and Jim Stowe, legendary coaches on both sides, and then you think of recent players on each side like A.J. Gray and Christopher Williams at Lexington, Caleb Powell and Arkell Coleman at Milan, and how are these teams going to look without those senior classes that just left? Both of them lost big senior classes. We saw a little bit in Paris last week, or you saw a little bit in Paris last week from both of those teams, but we'll get a much better indication this week now that the games count.
Another team we got to see in Paris, the Jamborees last week, was South Gibson. Hornets went 10-0 last year for a tough early playoff loss. They've lost the Walden brothers out of their backfield, and they got a pretty tough test, it looks like, this week in Medina against Camden. What are you looking for?
Both of these teams are 3A teams and who have made the playoffs. Well, South Gibson, this is just their third year varsity, but they made the playoffs the last 2 years. Camden has been making the playoffs for years as well, just about every year. Camden had a pretty stout defense last year. Coach Blow thinks that they could be even better this year. South Gibson, they got some good athletes back, like Daniel Fly, tight end, Garrett Lashley, receiver. Last I heard, the quarterback situation hadn't been ironed out just yet, so that may be an advantage for them because Camden is not sure what to plan for just yet. So, that one's going to be an interesting matchup, and I think it's going to be a good one to watch, just between two good 3A squads.
And then finally, West Carroll will be hosting Humboldt. West Carroll's a team that's had some pretty good success the last couple of years. Some changes have happened there as far as personnel, and then Humboldt's a team I know you expect quite a bit out of. What are you looking for in Atwood?
Well, this game got a lot more interesting last year when Humboldt got moved down to Class 1A after the reclassification. We could see this matchup again sometime in November in the playoffs.
All right, well, those are the games. We'll have Jackson Sun reporters or stringers at all those games, so there'll definitely be some coverage on those. We'll also have some reports from some of the other games in the area. There are several that are pretty interesting. We'll be talking to the Jackson Christian coach, Matt Underwood, after their game at FACS. Dresden will be at Westview, Peabody at McKenzie, and then Adamsville, the #1 team in the Dirty Dozen, will host Chester County. So lots to keep an eye on. We'll be keeping our eye on all that. And so if you'd like to follow along, grab a Saturday paper coming up. Check us out online Friday night.
And before Friday night, before you get to the game, we have our football preview section coming out with Friday's
That's right.
paper. Football kickoff 2013 breakthrough.
And that's something pretty handy to hold on to because it's got rosters and
Right.
information on every team. So if you follow one team, you can kind of keep that in hand and take it with you each week and see who a little bit more about who you're playing. So
Exactly.
definitely something to check out. But obviously, all the reporters will be busy on Facebook and Twitter on Friday nights and then throughout the week as well with all the updates and everything you need to know about high school football in West Tennessee.